Second speaker. So Farid C. Partovi is going to be speaking on building international solidarity, Iran's experience. So Farid is a longtime organizer with the International Alliance in Support of Workers in Iran and is president of Canadian Union of Public Employees, or CUPE, Local 4772.
So I'm working with International. I'm one of the co-founders of International Alliance Support Workers in Iran. This is workers in London, England. We have branches in 7 countries in the world, but we originally were formed in Toronto, in Canada, and then now we have branches in different parts of the world. A completely voluntary-based organization. Iran. I'm going to go really quickly through all of these because I want to get to the final slides. In terms of the population, around 80 million, 17 largest in terms of the size, 18 in terms of the population in the world. And so many, lots of people think that Iranians speak Persian only, but there are half of people who speak Persian, the other half speak so many different languages. All the Persian is an official language, and also in terms of nationality, same thing. Capital city Tehran. It's many advanced areas, upper class, a growing small upper class, but also a very much growing. So TTC, actually their TTC probably a little better than their metro is a little better than our TTC probably. But other than that, there's so many other issues. So as you can see, like for instance, this picture, these are like private jets, very expensive cars. So much you can see on the streets of Tehran, all other major cities. There is very growing capitalist, what we call them, rich, the children and grandchildren of the officials, and also they call them rich kids. Rich is a new name for them, rich kids of Iran. So there's vast growing, big homes and all that, lifestyle that you don't see in the picture, because the only thing you see in pictures is just veils and all that, these are all in Tehran, different cities. Again, this is part of much bigger presentation, but I want to just give you a picture of the contrast and the growing gap in terms of rich and poor and the different lifestyles and all that. So while we have the rich kids of Tehran, which is actually their lifestyle is much more lavish than the rich kids of Beverly Hills. Really, they're really extremely rich, and food privileges, and none of those restrictions that you hear about Iran, they actually applies to them. And at the same time, we have the growing number of what we call grave sleepers, cardboard sleepers. Those who live in slums, a huge number of homeless population, and huge number of areas that are not livable, but they have somewhere around 10 even official saying about 10, non-official estimates about 15 million people are living in these quote-unquote slums. Child labor, officials are saying 3 million child laborers. Non-official, non-governmental organizations saying that it was 7 million child laborers. Many of them outside the school system. This one is saying that child labor should be prohibited, a protest by child laborers. Back home. Lots of different ethnicity in Iran, and extremely diverse in terms of the population. Northern, southern, mass execution, public execution been happening past 40 years. These are some of the leftist activists who were executed around early 1980s. That's one of the pictures, one of the probably most famous pictures that people have seen. This is another, it's a teacher, union activist who was executed 2 years ago. Public hanging. And also cutting of the hands, and the one on the right is the cutting his hands. Families of those who've been hanged and killed in these are cemeteries. These are the guards and armies, there's like 5 or 6 different armies, and they have different names, and each of them have their own authority. And so in terms of, some of them are called Revolutionary Corps, some of them are called the siege militia, and then we have also regular security forces. This is the parliament, the current leader of the Islamic Republic, the current president, Ronnie, then supreme leader, and then the former president who's sitting, Ahmadinejad. The military forces, the police. These are the ones that you see, they call them plainclothes officers. They actually have full license to do whatever they want on the street. Not even security forces, police officer can stop them. They call plainclothes people there. These are some of the police forces, police forces, and then the training and all that. These are some of their job is to arrest women who are not really properly covering themselves. These are protests by women and students and activists on the streets. So many different protests. That's the first International Women's Day after the 1979 revolution by women. It was mostly influenced by leftist organizations, revolutionary organizations at the time. These are workers' protests against inflation rates, lack of workers' rights, all kinds of different, against the poverty wages, for freedom of labor active jail workers, International Workers' Day. These are teachers protesting. Sometimes they write in English. This is what the 32 months of unpaid their wages, which is very normal, now it's become normal practice. Unpaid wages somewhere between 3 months to 3 years, and that's one of the major protests that are happening. So I'm going to go, these are again all workers' protests and some of the workplaces. Child laborers again. So one of the key issues of the international solidarity work that we've done has been around international solidarity with jail workers, and these jail workers, they all are anti-capitalist, socialist, and I'm saying that because I'm going to get back to that, but I'm emphasizing. The one that you say here, Justice for Sharif Samani, he was killed in Rajai Shah prison 2 years ago. The one beside him that you see, he died last week. He was only 59. When he died, that's his picture before he went to jail. He had cancer. They refused to actually send him outside the prison to get the proper treatment. One of these two, they both were organizers. They both passed away. Out of the 3, the one that said Reza Shahabi is still in jail. I'll get back to them why I'm emphasizing on their situation. Just some of the protests in Iran for their freedom. So these are some of the basically the issues that people are fighting for: unpaid wages, right to organize, protests against temporary contract. 90% of the workforce is on temporary contract. So we don't have the right to organize. So the current organizations that you see, these are the organizers that they all are in the jail. They're losing their jobs. They're being persecuted. So many of them are like on temporary suspension. They're on probation. So internationally, they don't have. It's one of those countries, if you walk around and go to it, it's a union office that you can go. There's nothing like that. There's only organizations that are official. One is called the Workers' House of the Islamic Republic of Iran. That they've been trying to go to attend ILO conferences as workers delegates. Unfortunately, they become a member of WFTU. Hopefully later on we can talk about it. That's something we've been protesting. These are all government sponsored. They're part of like WFTU. Everyone probably you all know about WFTU. They're member of WFTU. This guy who's actually vice president of FTU, he's a member of parliament in Iran and one of the staunch supporters of the regime, a very repressive guy, someone who's been directly involved in repression of labor activists in Iran. So that's one of our challenges is around building international solidarity. It's been challenges that we've had to build this kind of international solidarity. On one hand, we have organizations such as WFTU, who are still in the Cold War mentality that against ITUC, and then we have ITUC on the other hand, who's saying that they're supporting Iran, but also they're still very anti-communist in so many different ways, but also gatekeepers, and they're not transparent. And transparent in terms of the way that they organize. They like bureaucrats, they have a few people in their offices, they want to make sure that everything goes through them. And this has been some of the challenges that we had internationally in terms of being able to build why we don't have actually independent workers organizations to be able to defend for themselves and send delegates in different parts of the world. They don't have a right to go to ILO conferences. They can't even, most of them, they can't even leave the country. So why we have situations like that, then the international solidarity has always been very problematic. When the two of the major international federations, each have their own approaches. One is totally not supportive, another one is supportive in their own narrow way, and they don't like progressive politics. You know, the Iranian labor movement is hugely influenced by socialist and anti-capitalist approaches, and ITUC must recognize that and respect that, but also WFTU has to recognize that this is so totally shameful that they're actually working with the Iranian regime and sending their delegates as working delegates to their meetings. Some of the positive experiences been around in Canada, for instance, is committees that are International Solidarity Committee of CUPE Ontario is formed by members of CUPE, members who get elected. They're not paid staff of CUPE, but they're elected in different locales because they are involved in the movement themselves, different movements, and they bring in that passion and interest. The way that CLC, for instance, used to work, that having a committee that is very centralized and very controlling, didn't work. And also was relying so much on the government funding and CEDA funding, and that wasn't the way to go. So we think that some of the good examples, another good example being some work with CUPE Global Justice Committee, and also some work that International Alliance in the past has done with Canadian postal workers. They've never been acting as gatekeepers. Of course, because of the limited resources and staff, it's always been challenging how much support. We can get a great example is the French collective in support of workers in Maghreb and Middle East, and something that we really want to promote here in Canada. It's a collection of some different unions. CFDT is more socialist with the socialist France socialism. CGT is more into the Communist Party. SUD is more anti-capitalist. Union, but they're coming from different tendencies, but they all agree to be working in support of workers in the Middle East and North Africa. And I think that that's been actually very effective because they respect workers' activists in different parts of the world, refugees such as ourselves who are directly linked to workers' movement in Iran or in different parts of the Middle East. They work on Palestine heavily as well. And also at the same time, they can actually be direct relationships. So far, they invited a number of activists from Iran going there. Some of them, after going there, they got arrested. But they're still working on that. And it's a kind of partnership that we're looking for that is mutual, is respectful, is equitable, respecting the fact that the different tradition of working in Iran. For instance, we don't call for the right to unionize, we call for the right to form independent workers' organizations. Because union is not the only way of organizing in Iran among the workers' activists. So I'm saying that, and also IWW, some of the Turkish trade unions, these are some of the positive experiences. I can give an example. Online campaigns that we've been doing, but I'll talk about it later on about the challenges the labor start and how we could, because especially with BDS movement and all that, we want to make sure that we are also at the same time in solidarity with Palestinian workers and with BDS, and that's a principle for us. And some organizations such as Labor Star who do really good international solidarity campaign, but they're not respecting that. And that's important to also talk about this as well. Thank you so much for time.